parents, but it's something that's not talked about. And so I kind of felt like I couldn't be accepted into that society. I kind of felt like I couldn't talk about this thing because I hadn't entered it yet. And I felt like the only way to enter it, which is so crazy, but was from a man. I felt like a boy had to say that he wanted to be with me in order for me to enter society, because women did not talk to me about it, but obviously I knew women were doing it. And so I felt like it was a thing of, once I do this thing, I'll be accepted. Once I do this thing, I would essentially be considered a woman. Another thing is too, some of my peers were doing this thing, and it just felt like it was something you just do. I really didn't see it honestly even being that important, because people talked about it on the sly so much that it just seemed like, okay, this is just something that happens, and then like it's not that big of a deal. You just find a guy that wants to do it with you, and then you do it. That's one of the most valuable pieces of me, but I felt like I was doing it to please him. I felt like, if anything, he was giving something to me. He was caring about me. He was showing me that he wanted to be with me. Like, it was just so crazy. And so I want to talk to some women about how to know when it's time, because I wish that it was something that was talked about more with me before that experience. The first thing I would say is, it's very imperative to make sure that you truly want to do it with that individual. Me personally, like I said, I would have waited, because now looking back at it, I knew that that person didn't truly care about me like that. Honestly, I knew I wasn't going to end up with that person, but it felt like a thing if he wanted to do it with me. So like, I should be happy, right? And I think a lot of times too, especially as younger women, it's this thing of like, okay, well, I'm in a relationship with him, or I really like this guy, or I want this guy to ask me to be in a relationship. And I feel like it should be a reciprocated thing. You have to understand that you need to value yourself enough to know you are giving him something that you can never get back. You are giving him essentially a piece of you that you can never give to someone else. Like, don't look at it as not being special. I think sometimes too, like, I didn't want to seem like it would be too magical, because I felt like that would be childish, but it is. Like, it really is something that should be that respected. It should be something that is that cared about, that when it is this person, understand they should be giving you something back too. They should be giving you respect. They should be giving you communication. Like, whatever you want out of someone that you truly care about, take away the title, take away the boyfriend, take away he wants to be with you, take away all that other stuff. Do you genuinely like this person? Like,
welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you already know what I'm about. So let's get into it. So this particular video is from Camilla Tiara. All right. And so if you guys want to go check that video out, it's called We Listen and We Don't Judge. If you haven't had sex yet, watch this. You know, I think what she's doing is actually great, because what she's trying to say is talk about losing her virginity from a woman's perspective, and to talk about the depths of that. What does it mean? How does that help you? All the different factors of it. And I'll be honest, as a man, I really can't speak to that. I think that is a unique thing that only women can talk to women about. And I think that it is one of those things that in our modern society, we're talking about more. And I think that unfortunately, a lot of parents, and even educators to a certain degree, they kind of jump over these types of conversations. Even recently, we did a video out here where me and a gentleman, Sean, from Scary to Remarry, we talked a little bit about sex for men over 40. And there were several people in the comments, that said, that they thanked, us for having that conversation. It was based on a well-educated, it wasn't scandalous, it wasn't dramatic. It was just talking about different aspects of men, that as they get older, what sex really means. And I think that to a large degree, she's doing the same thing for women, and being able to relate to them at where they are, in this space. So what I thought, would be nice was just to talk about a few things and how men see virginity and sex for women that might be concerned about it. Okay. And so that's really more my take, because remember, I can't really talk directly to what a woman would go through, but I can tell you how men feel about it. All right. Now let's go into it. So again, if you're new to the channel, you have to understand, I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 15 or you're 25 or you're 35 or you're 45 or whatever. People don't change, okay? And when I say they don't change, it doesn't mean they cannot go down a certain path and then change and go down another path. What it's saying is that the core personality of most people is not going to change in their life. All right. And when we look at personality tests, we can test people at age 15. We can test them at age 25. We can test them at age 35. We can test them at age 45. And guess what? Almost all the personalities are going to be the same. So if someone is at 15 and they are, for instance, an INTP on the Myers-Briggs, then more than likely through the rest of their life, they're going to be an INTP. Now, one letter might change. Maybe they were right at that edge of introverted, so now they become extroverted. So now they might be an ENTP. But for the most part, they're going to pretty much be, okay, that person. And I think that's the first thing that you have to kind of understand. So boys that are talking to girls, at age 15, these are the same boys that when they're trying to get into your panties at 15, okay, these are the same ones trying to do it at 25, same ones at 35, 45, etc. And this is why we talk a lot about, sexual energy, okay? And the first person that a woman has sex with or is intimate with, okay, is going to affect, okay, her choices for the rest of her life. It will, okay, either positively or negatively. So that I have to start there because you have to understand, ladies that are watching, is that there's lots of different types of men. Okay, it's not just this one monolith that all men act the same. And in fact, it is that concept of that monolith that causes so many women in their 30s and 40s to struggle with dating. Because they'll say all men are alike. All men want this. I've learned that all men, and you see that all over the internet. And it confuses women in the same way that women confuse men by saying, oh, we really want nice guys. Okay, it's the same type of confusion. So I'm going to help you out. All right. About 20% of men are very aggressive when it comes to dating, relationships, and their own sexual experiences. Somewhere between 20 to 25%. Okay. About 20 to 25% of men are what we would consider just losers. They are never going to do anything. They're going to be the 40-year-old virgin that is sitting in their house playing video games and watching porn. Okay. They don't have the confidence to talk to women. They'll never really have the confidence to talk to women. And unless they meet their female equivalent, more than likely, they're probably not going to get married. But unfortunately, a lot of these men, they really want the best women, and they'll bypass the women who look like them, act like them, and move in that energy. And they're always chasing something that they're not. Okay. But then they get frustrated, but then they don't never make changes to their own life. Because again, most people are attractive, but a lot of people don't put in the work. All right. So that group is the losers. And then you have another set that's in the middle. And this is the average guy. All right. And the average guy is really what most women want. Now, there's a lots of different personalities among these average guys. Okay. But this is the core of everywhere. Okay. I don't care where you go. I don't care if you're talking about America. I don't care if you're talking about overseas. And most women, and like I say, if you're a young woman, you probably already know about it. Let's break it down. If you're in high school right now or college, or even, you just remember back, maybe you're in your 20s. Think about high school. Think about the people that were in your class, in your grade, that you just remember right off the bat. Those are going to be the people that were around you the most. Okay. And you might say, well, my graduating class was 500 people. Okay. So say, because if you're in a bigger city, your graduating class might have been 500, might even been more. Okay, so if you have a graduating class of 500, which of those boys had a reputation of getting around, being womanizers, kissing on women, having lots of different girlfriends, different things like that, smooth talking, blah, blah, blah? How many boys in that group had that reputation? I bet you'll struggle. If you have 500, which means 250 boys, I bet you would struggle to even figure out if it was more than 25 of them. But then at the same token, I can say, okay, do you remember the guys that were 100% losers? They just had no clue at all. They were in the back of the class picking their nose and stuff like that, right? Every day coming in wrinkled shirts and stuff like that. And you can probably remember them because you're probably afraid of them. That's how you kind of know that they existed, all right? But a lot of the men just kind of faded into gray. You had no real emotion, towards them either good or bad. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about. In that group, that's more than likely around 60% of the men. Like some men will figure things out as they get older. Because of that, it won't just be 10%. It turns, like I said, that's why it turns into more like 25%. And it's the same thing at the bottom where a lot of men they were on the right track, but they just gave up, somewhere and just decided to go down their path, right? So in this middle, okay, again, we have all these different personalities. So how does this work? Well, as a woman, first of all, your virginity, just like she said, is probably one of the most precious things that you can actually give a man. And honestly, just like God wants you to do, and I don't have to be super spiritual in this, to be honest with you, but just like God wants you to give it to your husband, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, most of men would want you to give it to your husband. Most men, period. Again, when you're talking about that top 10, 15%, they wouldn't. They definitely wouldn't. But once you start to get into the average man really doesn't have a problem with virginity or even have a problem with you having very few partners. In fact, one of the biggest arguments that people are making right now on the internet is that they're saying women have too many partners. And there's opposition on the other side where a lot of women are saying, get out of our sex life. We can have as many partners as we want. But right now we're talking about the women, or this video is made for the women who are considering losing their virginity, or they're worried about the fact that they might have virginity or might just have a low, quote unquote, body count. Okay. So how does this work? Again, there is a group of men that these men really don't love you. They don't like you. They've just learned about women. Okay. And generally speaking, those men are going to be the least successful men in their life. Not always, but generally speaking. And we see this all the time, where you'll have men out here with 5 babies mamas, but then they working at, local fast food. All right. So a lot of these men, what they've cultivated in their life is the ability to talk to women. Okay. And they find it fun to be able to talk to a woman and within a certain amount of time, be able to be intimate with her. Okay. So when you show up and you block them, okay, they get frustrated by that. And a lot of women, because of that, they have this impression that if I don't have sex with these men are going to leave me and I'm never going to find anyone. But that cannot be further from the truth. See, these men were never going to marry you anyway. They were only going to hang out with you, make you placeholders, or just have sex with you and just move on. Okay, so they were never, ever going to love you. But in that 60%, okay, those are the men that you really want to focus on. Those men move slower, okay? They don't always have the right things to say. They're just honestly like you, okay? They're making mistakes as they move through life just like you. And so those men are willing to wait if you're what they're looking for, okay? And so from that perspective, there's more men out there. And remember, those are the men generally that will fade to gray. Just like in high school, even as I'm encouraging you to think about it, remember, you probably couldn't remember that many of those gray type of men unless you were in classes with them, unless they were right there next to you and they became your friends. But you knew that they weren't necessarily the popular boy, but they weren't really the disgusting boy either. And if you remember, more than likely, those boys were the ones that had it the hardest when it came to getting women, right? At least at that particular age. But like I said, most of them will learn and they will get better over time. So from a big perspective, the men that are bending over backwards trying to encourage you to have sex, you have to remember they're not going to be with you anyway. If you decide that I am going to stay a virgin, that I'm not going to have sex, or even if you've already had sex, you're like, I'm not going to have a lot of sex with a lot of different men. Okay, that is not going to hurt you when it comes down to the really good men that are going to marry you. In fact, that's going to be a bonus for them. And again, a lot of women believe that they have to be sexually proficient to hang out with these men. And again, that cannot be further from the truth. In fact, I was hanging out with a couple of friends, and I think I might have said this before in another video, but I was hanging out with a couple of friends one time, and we were talking about this particular young lady that I knew that had only had sex twice. She had only had sex twice in her life, and because she had got married. She was married, she got divorced, and so she had sex with one guy before she got married. Then she got married. Now she was divorced. And, as we were talking about it, because she was very worried about, the fact that men would not accept her because she didn't know if she was really that good in bed because she'd only really been with one guy. And, all the guys that were hanging out that were talking about this, and, a couple of them were married. I think over half of them were married. They were all like, well, no, that's great. Because now, her energy is going to line up with my energy. And everything we do sexually together is going to line up more with what, we both like to do. It's not this combination of all these other men that she's had over time and the way that they put sex together. It's more about how we put sex together. So again, there should not be fear in the concerns of, are you going to be good? Are you going to be bad? Or anything like that. Because truly masculine men have no problem teaching you. So that's something else, for you to consider. But when it all boils down to it, what hurts women when it comes to virginity is that you're afraid of sexuality. Okay. And see, that's the side that I see very few people talking about. See, everyone has sexual energy, whether you're a virgin or not, whether you're dormant, your sexual energy is dormant or not, you have it. Even the biggest nerd male has it. Trust me, he has it. But it's all about, that the fact that it's dormant, right? And the issue is when you're dating someone, a lot of times, especially in our current environment, and this definitely happens among Christians, is that a lot of Christians hide behind abstinence, okay? And it's because they really aren't sexual, or they think they're not sexual, okay? And see, this helps men a little bit more so than it helps women. And what do I mean by that? Is, well, a lot of women, their sexual energy is locked into the man. What he likes to do, what his fantasies are, blah, blah, blah. Why? Because the man leads. Okay, we talk about that all the time. That's one of the non-negotiables for men to lead. Okay, so when a man and a woman come together, even in sex, it is the man leading, like a dance. He's generally leading the woman down that dance. Okay, and the women that are experienced, the reason why they tend to be attracted to certain types of men is because those men will lead them a certain way in the way that they're used to. And that's why it's not good, like I say, to give, your sex away so easily. Now, that being said, if the man, his sexual energy is not at least moving in a direction, it's because I understand if he's abstinent, is evidently dormant, but it has to flourish. It has to grow. Okay, even if you guys decide we're not going to have sex until we get married, there has to be something there. So this is you having conversations about sex and having conversations about what he wants to do in sex and what he wants to do to you, for you, and all these other types of things. And you might say, Jay, dang, you're talking about this on a Christian channel. Heck yeah. I'm talking about this on a Christian channel because I'm encouraging people not to have sex. So you have to understand what to look for, in order to make sure that you don't end up with a dud. So if a man has no sexual creativity, and even in the conversations that you have with him, no sexual creativity comes out, then his dance, when he finally gets to the point of leading you, is not going to fulfill you. And that's one of those places where a lot of people, again, hide behind abstinence. But a man that is moving and his energy might be dormant, but it's there. It is strong and it is there. It is like a sleeping dragon. You need to see the dragon. You need to see the dragon in his eyes. If you don't see the dragon in his eyes, then ain't no dragon there. Now you want it to keep sleeping. And you want, that side of you to keep sleeping until you get married. But like I say, that dragon has to be there because a lot of women have ended up in situations where they've married men that were leaning and trying to hide behind abstinence, and then they get into it and it ends up being a sexless marriage or a very poor sex marriage. All right. But again, because I want to say I want to keep this balance. I'm always about keeping things balanced, on this channel. So from from a man's perspective to a woman, if I run into a woman and she's like, I'm a virgin, I'll be honest with you, I'll be like, hallelujah. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. And I think a lot of men would. Okay, at this, it really doesn't matter their age. If they are a decent guy and a good guy and they're really trying to build a family, they're going to be very excited about that. Okay. Now, if you've had one or two sex partners, again, most of them understand you're a woman. You're going to be out here. You're going to be doing stuff. This is our world that we live in. Okay. People make mistakes. And honestly, we all get urges. Again, it's not that big of a deal. Okay. But again, this is not about body count or not body count. This is just about, like I say, women who are basically, like I say, virgins or whatever, and they're trying to figure it out. So I want to make sure that we understand what this conversation is about, because I know the comments get all over the place talking about, I said don't have a big body count. Look, that's not what this is about. For the women, like I said, that if this is the path, don't worry about it. But like I say, I'm cautioning you, okay, on making it an idol, okay, because a lot of women do that when they're virgins or they're heavy duty abstinent. Maybe, like I say, they had sex with one guy. It can become an idol. And it can become to the point where you're just like, oh, this big virginity thing, oh, this sex thing, I just want it to be the best and blah, 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 blah. And you just build it up in your head. And then what ends up happening is you can never be satisfied. Okay. At the end of the day, sex is a beautiful thing. It's a good thing. It's great when you give it to someone. Okay. Especially your virginity side of it. But it can't be bigger than the marriage. It can't be bigger than the relationship. You almost have to see it like a sweet 16 party or an 18-year party or a graduation from something. It's like a wonderful moment in time. It's almost like your wedding day. That'd be about the best way to say it. Do you want to have a bad wedding day? Most women, they dream about this great wedding day, right? Well, it's the same thing. It's important, but it's not more important than the marriage. The marriage is what's important, not necessarily the wedding day, but you still want the wedding day to be nice. Well, that's the whole thing with virginity. It's not so much that, you don't want to idolize it. Because if you idolize it and then you're afraid of your own sexuality, then what that's going to do is that's going to repel men. And when you run into women that are in their 30s and 40s and they've struggled to get married and they're still virgins, and you'll see some people out here online and they'll talk about this stuff. A lot of times what's really going on, like I say, remember, I'm only talking about, what I know and what I've run into and I've talked about, run into, the people that I've talked to, is that a lot of times what's really going on with those particular women is that they have idolized sex, whether they're having it or not having it. And because of that, when they run into a man, they're uncomfortable. When they sit next to the man, they're uncomfortable. When they're alone kissing the man, they're uncomfortable because they're always thinking, oh, he's going to try something. Oh, I have to protect this sex. Oh, I have to make sure that I stay a virgin. Right? And see, that energy is unattractive. See, that's the energy that's unattractive. That is not attractive to men. In the same way, if you are a woman and you're out with a man and he seems nervous, you're just nervous. For a lot of women, that turns them off. It is a total turnoff because they want a man that can stand confidently in front of them to be the whole protector provider. Well, it's the same thing for men. When men get around a woman and she seems very nervous with her own sexuality, and that generally comes because you're idolizing sexuality in some kind of way, at that point, the man is no longer really that attracted to you. Because for him, you could be 30 years old, but your sexual energy feels like a 12-year-old. And see, that is really where the problem is. So again, a lot of women might say, well, okay, how do I fix that? Well, again, you have to relax. You have to relax. Okay? And then you have to basically tell the man what you want. You have to go slow. Okay, because I'm always surprised at how many women don't want to really go slow. A woman determines the pace at the very beginning of any type of relationship. A woman says yes or no to whatever man comes up to her, and she determines how quickly she's going to go out with him, how quickly she's coming over to his house, or he's coming over to her house, or how quickly y'all going to spend time together. So you as a woman, you're supposed to be using that time to figure out what kind of man this is. Okay? And let's be real. A lot of men are going to try you. Whether you say that you're a virgin or that you've just had sex with one or two people or that you're abstinent, they're going to try you. Okay, I'm just being real. It's going to happen. 95% of men are going to do it. If nothing else, they're going to do it just because, I'll be honest, as a man, and we've even had social media videos that have talked about this, where a woman will complain saying, well, I told him I didn't want to do nothing, but then, he didn't make a move on me at all. Okay? And see, that is the difference between a woman who's comfortable in her sexuality and a woman that is not. Is because a woman that is comfortable in her sexuality, if she tells the man, no, we're not going to have sex, okay, and then the man tries her a little bit, okay, she pushes him away and says, look, I told you we're not. I appreciate it. I was feeling it a little bit, but we ain't doing that tonight. I'm just trying to get to know you. And she laughs it off and she moves to the next thing. And at that point, the man understands that, okay, she is feeling me, okay, but it's not time, right? And see, that's that tricky place where a lot of people get really messed up. And that's why I'm trying to, make sure that you understand, okay, how to navigate this. But again, a lot of it's going to go to the type of guy that you're attracted to, the type of guy that is coming into your life, the type of guy that you want in your life. Okay, because again, every man is going to go a little bit different and they're going to handle you a little bit differently. But the core element to this is I don't want women who who've only been with one or two men or have been with zero men to be afraid, okay, of dating, or worried that just because you haven't had sex, is that going to hurt you? And I'm letting you know it's not going to hurt you with real men, with the men that I would want you to date, with the men that I would want you to marry. Those men are not going to be dissuaded. And that's why so many churches are always trying to tell women, okay, that if he is not willing to wait for you, he don't like you, which is very true. Okay. And it's like I said before, it's only about 20%, 25% of men that are truly not going to wait. Okay. Those are the men that just 100%, they're just not going to wait. But a good portion of the men will wait. But again, you have to be what they want. And again, I want to make sure I'm being clear, because that's why I say 1 minute videos, they don't talk about that stuff because they can't. They don't just have enough time. And that, again, is why so many people get confused. Anyway, remember on Thursdays, every other Thursday in 2025, we'll have Zoom Lives. That's a really great place to come out and either do questions or comments, because your comment might help someone else. It's all about helping other people, all right? So let's not be shy. Okay, those that have hung out a while know that, yes, we do them live, but then they go into the membership area. So this is not out there on the internet for everybody to see. This is just about this community, the community that we have out here. Some of you might know about Christian Singles Connect or Christian Millennials Connect. Okay, those are the two groups that I try to work through, and a lot of the events that we do out here on this channel flow through those two groups. So those links are down there in that description if you want to be a part. If you also want to help to volunteer in those areas and you think that you can help out with events and different things like that, please let me know. If you're someone who watches and, like I said, you want to collab, remember, hit me up on IG. And then also, like I say, if you're a person out there that you even have events that you do and you want to collab on something like that, again, hit me up and we'll see what we can do. But anyway, until then, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.